up by Green. Throws it back up top. James puts up the three. Oh, it's good! LeBron James from downtown!
Hi, welcome to another episode of 3 Guys on Mike. I'm William, joined by my co-host,
Aaron.
And as you can tell, our friend Jeremiah Wimber is no longer here. He left. And the reason for that is because Jeremiah, for the next 3 to 4 months, is going to be playing football at Laverne. He's going to be living out the dream.
You fucking made it sound like he died.
I know. So it's just going to be us for the next few months. But NFL videos are finally back. We're going to be doing division predictions. We're going to make it a 4-part series. Today we're going to be doing AFC East and Nfc East. But before we get into the video, we want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, share. It'll help us out a lot. Now with this NFL season, it is officially the biggest NFL season. That's what they're marketing it as. And we're going to have 17 regular season NFL games. And what do you think about that, little man?
I like it. I'm not sure for the players' sake. I don't think it's good for them because there's a lot of health issues, contracts, maybe some people betting on themselves, more risk of them getting hurt. I think for the fans, it's obviously a great idea. And for the Super Bowl to land on Valentine's Day, I'm pretty sure. I expect a lot more viewers this year, simply because it's on Valentine's Day.
I think it could work the opposite way. There might be a lot of people.
Actually, yeah. It might be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think that the injuries are gonna risk, having more NFL games. I mean, I'm excited to have more football. I'm sure a lot of players, feel different. Again, and also with the records, Peyton Manning's record. I just saw an Instagram post about it that Peyton Manning's record could be broken now because there's a lot.
At this point,
more games.
anybody's record really.
Yeah, anybody's record. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. This episode, we're gonna be doing the AFC East and the NFC East, and we're gonna start off with the AFC East. So I'm gonna start off with Little Man. How do you feel about this?
AFC East, I think it's going to be a stacked division for this year and possibly years to come. But I'm going to go 4-1.
Okay.
And then once I say my fourth, you give yours and we'll just go back and forth.
Okay.
So who I have finishing last is the New York Jets. Simply because they're a team with a new head coach, rookie quarterback, Robert Saleh's defensive heavy coach. And with all these reports saying Zach Wilson's having a bad camp, I feel like the main reason why is because his head coach is a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
And we've all seen these new head coaches come from an offensive standpoint, and that's how really the rookies get their career started, by a rookie head coach who's really offensive-minded. But I think at some point he'll turn it around. He has Corey Davis. They drafted a really good running back in Michael Carter. They have really good defense. You got C.J. Mosley coming back. Yeah. They signed some pieces there. I just don't think they're built for right now. I think they're built for the future of the NFL and the AFC East.
I agree with Little Man with the Jets. I think Zach Wilson, even though he's having some struggles in camp, I think it's way too early. He hasn't even played his first preseason game yet. I think it's way too early to judge him and to just completely give up on him. And again, I don't think the Jets are giving up on him. They're just a lot of fans who just like to talk, and they overreact this early in the season. A lot of fans overreact. I do think Zach Wilson is like that typical TV quarterback. He just has that look to him. I do think he could be a really good quarterback, but I just don't think it'll happen this year. Yeah. Simply because they haven't surrounded him with the weapons that I think he needs to flourish. I think that could happen in the future, just not right now. And again, their division is way too stacked for them to, make a legit push.
Yeah, that'll be really hard.
But I do think it's going to be interesting to see how the new head coach is going to change that culture. As we know, there's been a lot of head-scratching things with the Jets organization in the past few years, and I think he's going to turn it around. As you see when he was with the Niners as a defensive coordinator, he was always getting hyped with this team, always jumping around. So I think bringing that energy to a team like that, I think it can help them in the long run. Well, man, go ahead with your number 3 team.
Number 3, I have the Miami Dolphins. The team has a lot going for them with Tua entering his second year. They get Al Wilson back because he opted out of COVID from last year. They get Will Fuller for a 1-year deal, I believe. They still have Myles Gaskin, who was a show-out rookie last year. The defense is expected to be really good. Piggyback off his last year because they almost lost Xavier Howard. As we all know, he requested a trade, but they gave him the contract he wanted. But to me, I think with Tua, he has a lot going for him and against him because this year he doesn't have Fitzpatrick to lean off of when the game gets tough or when they're struggling. Yeah. It's all on him now. But to me, in my opinion, I think this team ends up being in a wild card position.
Okay.
Possibly against the Patriots.
Like they're going to be racing?
Yeah, they'll be racing for that wild card spot.
Okay, well, in my third seed, I have the Patriots. And that doesn't mean that the Patriots are going to be bad by any means. And I agree with Little Man. I think that the Patriots and the Dolphins are going to be, neck and neck. They play each other for the last game of the season. And I do think that game is going to mean a lot when it comes to these two teams. As you know, Patriots aren't used to losing. Patriots have been a winning organization for the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
They had their first losing season, and Bill Belichick wasn't going to have a second one. So he goes out on free agency and mostly revamped that offense. They got back Trent Brown. They got Jonnu Smith, who's been a standout in training camp. A lot of people are saying that he looks like that number one guy. You know, like he's obviously the leader of that offense when it comes to production. They're saying that Nelson Aguilar is another guy that can help out. And again, he had some troubles in Philadelphia. The year we won the Super Bowl, he was playing phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Had some down years. He goes to Las Vegas, and they switch him to the outside instead of being in the slot. And he looks like a completely new wide receiver. And I do think that he's going to help a lot, especially being on the outside. You got to get Cam back to form, and I think he's going to help tremendously. You get Hunter Henry. Hopefully he stays healthy. Hunter Henry is also a phenomenal tight end once he gets healthy. And you drafted Mac Jones. Drafting Mac Jones, I think... I'm not the biggest guy on Mac Jones. You know, I don't think he's going to be the next big
I don't
thing.
think a lot of people are, from being honest.
But I still think that if there's anyone who can make it work, it's the Patriots. It's Bill Belichick who can make a quarterback like Mac Jones work. But I got to ask you, who do you think is going to get that starting spot? Not at the beginning of the year, but at the end of the year.
I think Cam Newton, because he gives them the best chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the grit, the passion.
Talent.
I think that's all you really need when you play for the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think Cam's going to stick with it. Or they're going to stick with Cam for the rest of the year. And I do think that Cam is going to get back to his true form.
I hope so.
Especially with all the additions that you get him. You get him two big body targets in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. So I do think he's going to be phenomenal this year. Again, it was his first year in that offense. And he had COVID. So I think this year is going to be a lot different for him. I think he's going to play well. I do think Mac Jones could be a good quarterback, just not right now. Even though I do think he could get playing time this year. But yeah, so that's my thing with the Patriots. I think they're third. I just don't think they're going to be better than the Bills, at least. But I do think they're going to be neck and neck with the Dolphins.
Yeah. Off what you say about the Patriots, I have them at 2. Mm-hmm. I think this team's potential to get back to where they were in the glory days with all these acquisitions, the offensive, on both sides.
Yeah.
The offensive side and on the defensive side, they signed Matt Judon, Jalen Mills, a couple other guys to help fill that void from last year. Well, I think Mac Jones, I think he gets playing time this year. But then again, like I said, I still think Cam gives him the best shot to win and to get into the playoffs and maybe make a run at it. But I'm just not sure if Cam Newton's the right quarterback to kind of mentor Cam, you know, or Mac, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Because, like, Cam's a runner, kind of like a, what's that Madden build they call it?
Scrambler?
A scrambler, yeah, scrambling quarterback. When Mac Jones is really just a pocket passer and a deep ball guy. And I don't think Cam's really been that. I mean, maybe before he got injured, he was a deep ball guy. But most of all, it's just improvising with him. But I think, look what they did with Tom Brady.
Yeah,
6th-round pick, 199. I mean, Mac Jones could be that type of player. But once again, I think they're not better than the Bills. I just don't think that's the team that's going to haunt them this year for sure. But yeah, I have them at 2.
What you said about Cam Newton not being that mentor, I kind of have to disagree. I think he could be a mentor in terms of how to maneuver through the NFL. But I think play style, I do agree with you. It's going to be kind of hard to help him through that play style. But I do think he could be a good mentor when it comes to like other things like.
Oh yeah, it's a plus because he's been in the league for what? 10, almost 10 years.
But I get what you're saying though. The two different quarterbacks is going to be kind of hard. With my second team, I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I do think the Dolphins are a good team. I think they're going to get back on track, just like how they were last year. They were right outside that wild card spot. And I think this year Tua is going to have a reliable receiver. They drafted Jalen Waddle. And Jalen Waddle, he's kind of a speedster. And he's a guy that I think Tua could just dump off and he could take it to the house. Take it 80 yards to the house. I do think Jalen Waddle is that kind of receiver. But again, as you said, Tua doesn't have Ryan Fitzpatrick to rely on when he's having a bad game. But he also doesn't have that monkey on his back either.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. And Tua did have some really good games last year. Against the Cardinals, had a really good game. But then you look at games like the Raiders, where he gets taken out. Too. The Broncos, yeah, you look at games like that. So I think it's just all about getting him consistent. And the Dolphins did have a solid defense last year. Statistically wise, they weren't that good. But I do think they had a bend but don't break defense. I think their defense allows a lot of yards. They, allow the big plays and stuff. But when it comes to the red zone, they do not bend. They don't break at all. And they either get you to kick a field goal or they get a turnover or something. They only allowed 21 points last year. So only 21 points a game in the NFL is tremendous. So I think if Tua could just deliver this year, he doesn't have to play phenomenal, but if he could just deliver and do what they asked him to do, I think this Dolphins team could be really good, and that's why I have them edging out the Patriots.
Yeah, I think he kind of has to balance it out from him putting the team on the back and the defense.
Yeah.
I think he has to do his part, and they both, what I mean, just balance it out.
Yeah.
But other than that, at 1, pretty obvious, I have the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, who's improved every year since he's gotten into the league. I think they're out for revenge after what happened last year in the AFC Championship. I mean, keep in mind, with all the injuries they had, I thought they played great. Cole Beasley had a torn fibula or something like that. Stephon Diggs was battling some stuff. Broken fibula. Yeah. Torn. Stephon Diggs was battling some stuff. But I think this might be the year Josh Allen gets MVP. This might be the year that he takes him to the promised land with Stephon Diggs. And they signed Matt Breida and Emmanuel Sanders. Just 2 more good elite weapons to give him. And I expect some drastic changes from the defense this year.
I agree with you. I do think that the Bills are going to be that number 1 team. As you know, Josh Allen signed a big contract last week for 6 years, $258 million, $150 million guaranteed. So, I mean, he's set for life, set for generations. And again, I agree with you. I think he's going to be in the mix for MVP this year. Will he win it? I do not know. But I do think he's going to have another phenomenal season. I think this team is another top 4 team. Again, just like last year, I still think they are in the mix. I think they're the only teams that can really challenge the Chiefs. Well, besides the Browns, but I think they're the top dog to challenge the Chiefs when it comes into the AFC. And there's a lot of things going around. A lot of people are saying that Josh Allen only has 1 good year, and it's simply because of Stephon Diggs. What do you think about that?
I think it's a lie, especially watching Thanksgiving. Like 2 years ago, I think now it is.
Against your Cowboys?
Against the Cowboys when he absolutely demolished them single-handedly. And that whole year, he was just going at people, and his best receivers were a 6-foot John Brown and a 5'9" Cole Beasley.
Yeah. I do think it's unfair to judge Josh Allen for his prior years before Stephon Diggs, because, again, he was still really young.
Yeah.
And you look at Stephon Diggs, if you look at any quarterback, any top quarterback in the NFL, they always have that elite receiver. You look anywhere, you go to Green Bay, you go to Seattle, you go anywhere.
Yeah.
Kansas City, they all have elite receivers, they have tremendous receivers. So I think it's kind of hard to knock Josh Allen for that. So yeah, but I do think their one weakness, and it's a glaring weakness, and it happened last year in the playoffs, I think their run game has to improve dramatically. I think when Josh Allen is your leading rusher, I think that's a recipe for disaster, simply because you don't want to rely on your quarterback being your number 1 rusher. And again, when it comes to the playoffs, those cold weather games, those hard games, you need a running game, a consistent running game to keep the defense honest and to just get your O-line going, And I still think that Matt Breida, I think he's going to help with that, but I just think they got to fix that to be that top dog team. So yeah, I think that does it for our AFC East. Now I'm going to let little man transition over. We're going to go with our NFC East picks.
Keep this short and simple. At 4, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Simply due to the fact, I think, with the new head coach, rookie wide receiver, phenomenal in college, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts still kind of getting used to getting his feet under the NFL. And Miles Sanders, who's still a young running back, who hasn't really got to show his full potential yet due to injuries. I think this team is set for the future, just obviously not now with how tough the NFC East is looking, in my opinion. But I still think that trio with Sanders and Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith in the future can do some damage. But I think they just got to get used to the head coach first.
Okay. You kept it really short. But, again, with the NFC East, Milo and I would talk about this a lot. And it's the fact that a lot of coaches in the NFC East are either a first year or a second year head coach. And again, we know it's not easy to be a head coach in the NFL, let alone in your first year. So I do think that the NFC East is going to get a lot stronger in years to come. But just right now, it's just really weak. And I think the NFC East has a lot of talent. I just don't think it has the coaching and the structure yet. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the Eagles are going to be the last place team in the draft. And I think it's because Nick Sirianni, I think he's a very passionate head coach. But we have yet to see how good he is with the X's and O's. Mm-hmm. But if you look at him, he seems very passionate in his press conferences. When you see him in practice, he's out there actually engaging with his players in practice, doing the drills with them and everything. So I do think he's going to be a good head coach when it comes to being a locker room guy. Jalen Hurts, I think he deserves to have at least 1 year to prove that he's a starter. There's a lot of rumors that Deshaun Watson is going to, that we're going to try to trade for him. But I think that there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't trade for him. A lot of outside noise that we shouldn't, try to trade for him is going to bring a lot of distractions to our locker room. But I do think Jalen Hurts is a natural born leader. It just has to translate to the field. I think the key to this team, though, especially on the offensive side, is to bring a lot of pizzazz and a lot of, spice to that offense. Something that we didn't really have last year with Doug Peterson. And I do think that getting Miles Sanders involved more, about 20 touches a game with receptions and rushes, I think that's a recipe for success simply because Miles Sanders is a phenomenal running back. I watch every single Philadelphia Eagles game, and every time he gets the ball, something special could happen. You see last year, there's 3 runs of 50-plus yards last year for him. So he can make a big play, make a big run at any time. You just got to give him the carries. Doug Peterson last year was not giving him the carries at all. And I think it's going to work if Jalen Hurts, since he's a young quarterback, you run the ball more. And especially Jalen Hurts is a running quarterback. It's going to work.
Oh, yeah.
All right, it should work. But I do think this offensive core is very young, and I think it's very talented with Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders, a healthy O-line that was completely destroyed last year. You have Devontae Smith, who I think is the best receiver in the draft, personally. Travis Fulgham, Jalen Reagor, who had a down year, but he still has a lot to prove, and a great D-line. I think that's the one position group that is amazing about this team is their defensive line. You obviously have Fletcher Cox, who I think is a second interior defensive tackle in the NFL. Brandon Graham, who's always going to be there in the sacks.
You think Fletcher Cox is second to Aaron Donald?
I think Fletcher Cox is second. And then you had Ryan Kerrigan. Maya made a TikTok about it, saying that Ryan Kerrigan was kind of like a funny, pickup, saying that he's too old and this and that. I don't think we're bringing him in to be a starter, but to rotate guys on defense, I think it's going to help us a lot.
I think I see him as a starter.
I think, he very well could be a starter.
Still wreaks havoc on the D-line for sure.
Yeah, and you have Montez Sweat, right? Josh Sweat. You have Josh Sweat, who played less than 40% of snaps last year and only had 3 forced fumbles, 9 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks. And there's been reports of him having a phenomenal training camp, and I think it's going to translate this year. I'm looking forward to 10+ sacks for him. I really think if he gets the reps, he could get 10+ sacks.
He's kind of flexible, huh? Because sometimes I see him in the interior and then
he's
sometimes on the outside.
Yeah. So I still think this team could be very good. Not very good, but I think they can make a run.
Like a sneaky team, huh?
A sneaky team because 5 of the last 6 games are against division opponents and against the Jets. So I do think if they could get things together in the last month and a half of the NFL season, they can make a playoff run.
There's no better way to end a season run like that.
Yeah, than have your division opponents.
All right, going on to 3, I have the New York Giants. I mean, there's no question that their defense is probably top 10 in the league.
Yeah.
Actually really good and a surprising area on that team. But with the offense, considering who they're getting back, like you said, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Kenny Galladay signed there. Evan Ingram, Saquon's finally healthy.
Yeah.
A revamped O-line. This team all lands on Daniel Jones. And I think if he doesn't perform this year, they obviously have to look into something into the draft or free agency because I think 3 years, or this might be his 4th year. I think it's his fourth year.
Yeah.
It's just too long. Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think it's time to switch something up.
Yeah. I think the Giants, as we know, technically, they were the division winners last year. Again, the Eagles decided to tank and, screw them out of a playoff spot. But I do think that this year it's clear. Daniel Jones, they're going to see what they have in him.
Yeah.
And they're going to get him all the help that he needs. And Little Man named a few, but Saquon's coming back. You get Kenny Galladay, Zach Rudolph, Kadarius Toney, they drafted him. Again, they wanted Devontae Smith, but we ended up taking him before that. And I think Kadarius Toney could be a very good receiver.
I didn't really get that considering all the wide receivers they have. Like their wide receiver.
Yeah, I guess they just want that number 1 guy, and they want the.
Oh.
But they have Darius Slayton, who's a good receiver. Just has to, I think if he's placed with the right quarterback, could be a really good receiver. Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard. So they have the talent on offense, but it's all on Daniel Jones. This year is all about getting him the help, and it's all about seeing what you have in him. And I think that having 3,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions isn't going to cut it. Those were Daniel Jones' stats last year. They were not phenomenal by any means. So I think he's going to have to get north of 25 touchdowns and limit the turnovers, especially the fumbles, which is a big knock on him. So yeah, with that, I think that they're going to be the 3rd team in the NFC East. You go ahead, little man.
That's pretty good. Number 2, I have the Washington football team. Another team, no question, no doubt that their defense is going to show up this year. That incredible D-line, all first-round picks.
Yeah.
But with their offense, they get Curtis Samuel to pair up with one of his best friends in college, Terry McLaurin. Great O-line with Brandon Scherf leading the charge. Antonio Gibson, who possibly could have been Offensive Rookie of the Year. I expect big things out of him again. But with Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's never been that guy to take his team to the next level.
I get that.
the playoff run, Super Bowl, anything like that. You know what I mean? So I think that his job this year is just to mentor Taylor Heineke for the future. I'm not saying that they won't make playoffs. I think they're a wild card team simply because of the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick has been there so many times and that he's a veteran that everybody loves. And their offense is going to be really good. And I can't rule out Logan Thomas. He's an underrated tight end. But I still think that they're a wild card team, and that's as far as I'll take them this year.
Okay, well, I mean, as you said, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is the perfect bridge quarterback when you're trying to prepare a young quarterback like that. And I do think that this team is a very scary team when it comes to a one-game scenario. I still think that defensive line could give plenty of teams trouble.
Yeah.
I still think that Ryan Fitzpatrick could catch fire at any time, and then he could also play down at any time. So it's going to be hit or miss with him, and I do think that he's going to have a good season this year. You also get Curtis Samuel, as you mentioned before. I think not only can he be a great receiver, but they put him in the backfield at Carolina, and I think that could add a lot of pizzazz, to that offense.
Yeah.
And I think that this year in the offseason, there's been a lot of talks about vaccines, right? And a lot of teams, a lot of locker rooms are kind of being split up, which I don't agree with. I don't think you should take outside politics and bring it into football when it comes to separating your locker room. But as we know, Ron Rivera, being cancer-free, but he's still at risk of COVID.
Yeah. And
he was upset at his team for only 60% of them being vaccinated. And I do think more of them got vaccinated now, but I still think that that's something that, there's outside noise coming in. I think that could disrupt the locker room, but who knows?
For sure.
Yeah. And again, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick brings stability to that quarterback room. Like in recent years, Kyle Allen with his big injury. You look at Alex Smith, huge injury, and he comes back and still isn't 100%, couldn't even play in the playoff game. You look at Dwayne Haskins, who, he played up and down at times, and then he has outside noise. There's a lot of things that are being off the field distractions, and I think that's just, it sucks for them when it comes to quarterbacks. Ever since Kirk Cousins left, they've just been a revolving door of many quarterbacks.
Like what the Browns were.
Yeah, pretty much. And I do think that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to bring some stability to it. And yeah, I do think they're going to be a good team this year. Wild card, I'm not too sure, but I do think they're going to be in the hunt for the wild card for sure. I still think that. I'm saying because
you wouldn't say that they're a lock though.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're a lock because I know the NFC is really stacked, and I think they're going to be in the hunt for sure.
All right. Well, number one.
This should be a surprise. Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys are on my list, simply due to the fact that Dak Prescott is coming back healthy and ready. Zeke Elliott is down 10 pounds, the lightest he's been since college. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, they're all there. Healthy O-line's coming back. The one problem I had with this team last year, which I hope changes drastically with a capital D, is the defense. They get Dan Quinn, who I think is a perfect mentor for our rookies, Michael Parsons, Kelvin Joseph, and Jabril Cox, who I think will lead the defense in the future. I think he'll be a good way to pick up Jalen Smith's self-esteem because there's a lot of rumors with him going around being on the trade block, him and Leighton Vander Esch. So I expect big years from them too, or those three actually.
Yeah.
I just think the Achilles heel of this team is the defense, obviously. But I still think that offense could put up points and lead them to the promised land. And maybe in a couple years, I don't know if it's this year just yet, hold up a Lombardi trophy.
Okay. I would say pump your brakes just a little bit. And I'm not saying that the Cowboys aren't going to be a good team, but I do think it's going to be a while until they get to that Super Bowl team. I'm not saying next year, but I'm saying maybe 2 to 3 years from now. I do think they could reach that potential, especially with Dak. And I just think that defense has to get fixed. I don't think it's going to happen over the course of a year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I do agree with Little Man. I think the number one team is the Cowboys. You look at this team before Dak gets hurt. They were still 2-3 before he gets hurt, but the fact that Dak was on course to throw for 5,000 yards, having, I think, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he was just playing phenomenal. It just sucks that his injury happened at such a bad time. Honestly, it was never really a good time for that to happen, but it just sucks for them, for the team as a whole. I do think this offense is unstoppable at full strength. I think Zeke, a lot of people place the blame. Again, he did have a down year. It was a pretty bad year with his fumbles, but I don't think it was necessarily all on him. You look at the offensive line, having a bunch of different starters, a bunch of injuries. It's hard for a running back to, just trust your O-line, especially when there's a bunch of new guys coming in. And yeah, I still think that this team, let's not forget, Zeke was one of the best running backs in the NFL. And I think with the healthy O-line and with Zeke playing back, coming back to the way he was playing, I still think this offense is a top 5 offense. And I think a top 5 offense is enough to win this division. I don't think this division is great by any means. I do think that all 4 teams are all in the mix with each other. I think the gaps are really close. But I think the Cowboys are just the most complete team. And again, with their first round draft pick, Michael Parsons, I think where he's going to really shine is going to be hovering around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I think they're going to use him for mostly like blitzing and stuff like that because that's what he did in college. And I think he's going to be a really good player this year. A really good rookie. And yeah, I just think the Cowboys are that number 1 team. And again, you give Mike McCarthy, you give him a second year to be in this, be with this team. It was just last year was a lot of things, a lot of outside noise, a lot of injuries, a lot of COVID going on, so I just think that this team is going to be that number 1 team this year.
A lot of social media stuff I feel like got to their heads too.
And that's the case with all Cowboys teams. No matter what they do, Cowboys and like LeBron, like those 2 things, it's like anything they do, it's going to hit the media. It's going to be
anytime NFL season or NBA season starts, they're trending almost every week.
Yeah, LeBron and Cowboys, it goes hand in hand. So yeah, that's going to conclude it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. This is obviously our new setup now. We finally have a camera, finally have lights. And just want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Little man, anything you want to say?
And just remember that this is part 1 of a 4-part series.
Of a 4-part series.
We still got 3 more.
Yeah, and thank you, Patrick Osuna, for editing our videos. So yeah, thank you guys.